Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Today I've invited my friends from F5 back onto the podcast. And for those of you that don't know, they are a huge company, but F5 Inc. is an American tech company specialising in application security, multi-cloud management, online fraud prevention, application delivery network, application availability and performance, not to mention network security and access authorization. Let's just say they know their stuff about IT. So I invited Geng Lin onto the podcast today to get a bit geeky and explore some value that IT can deliver to businesses and be seen as enablers rather than blockers. And there's a lot of things I want to talk about today, such as demystifying the concept of digital enterprise architecture and how it addresses the changing needs and requirements of data applications, infrastructure and security, and also learn a little bit more about incorporating the use of private and public clouds, data centers and edge computing into the new enterprise architecture to increase efficiency and delivering applications. And if we've got time, hopefully also talk about implementing site reliability engineering, best practices to align technology with business outcomes, and enable businesses to scale their digital operations. So it's a big one for business leaders and IT leaders. A quick few questions for you all. Does online privacy or lack of it concern you? And do you ever feel like your online privacy has been invaded? Well, after 2,300 podcast interviews on here, there are so many areas that I'm now aware of, such as the fact that my internet service provider literally knows everything that I do online. And incognito mode in a web browser doesn't offer as much protection as many think. But think about this. Would you find the prospect of handing over your laptop or phone to a complete stranger, or even a friend for that matter, to look at your browsing history to be the stuff of nightmares? And yet, someone out there knows absolutely everything you do online, every click, whether you like it or not. So if you want to stop internet service providers from always looking over your shoulder and profiting from your data, you need something like Private Internet Access, which is the world's most transparent VPN provider. They have over 30 million downloads. PIA has servers in 84 countries and in all 50 states. And it's the perfect software for staying private online because it hides your IP address and encrypts your internet connection. And Private Internet Access is really easy to use. There are apps available for all operating systems, and one subscription can protect up to 10 devices at once. And I'll be honest, as a daily tech podcaster, keeping my life private is very important to me. And after thousands of interviews talking about security issues on here, I'm more determined than ever to keep snoopers out of my digital life. So if you want to enjoy all the benefits of Private Internet Access, now's a great time to subscribe. Simply head to piavpn.com/techtalksdaily and get an 83% discount. Seriously, 83%, which works out at just $2.03 a month. And you also get 4 months completely free. But to activate this offer, you must go to piavpn.com/techtalksdaily for a truly private digital life. One last time, piavpn.com/techtalksdaily. Buckle up and hold on tight, because I'm going to beam your ears all the way to Seattle, where he's waiting to share his story today. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, thank you, Neil, for having me here. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at F5. I'm basically responsible for leading the technology strategy, product portfolio architectures, and critical innovations for the company. Where I came from, I came to F5 from JP Morgan Chase, where I was the Chief Development Officer for their consumer and community banking division. And before JP Morgan, I also worked at Google as a CTO for their corporate network and infrastructure team, and also served as the head of service engineering for their emerging market. And before Google, I worked on the IT technology provider side, where I was Chief Technology Officer and for the networking group at Dell, and also CTO for IBM Alliance Group at Cisco. So to make it short, so I have worked in my 25 plus years of industry experience. I have worked on both sides of the enterprise IT industry. So both on the CIO side and the vendor side.
And if I was to take you back even further than those 25 years, can you remember where your passion for tech first came, or something that lit the spark, or just a moment that would put you on that path?
Yeah, so I think my journey into the tech industry was perhaps not triggered by a single event, but a cumulative of many mini events. I graduated from my college days at a time where the internet infrastructure was the center of the universe or the tech industry. So I started obviously at the infrastructure level at Cisco of the world and so on. And then what it led to me is just the evolution of the to today is just the evolution of the internet ecosystem. After infrastructure was built and the IT capabilities were added onto it on the enterprise side. On the consumer side, the Google of the world was creating a layer of digital services, consumer-facing services over the internet. And then the vertical industries, such as the banking industry, such as the healthcare industry, taking advantages of the digital capabilities the internet infrastructure and the cloud infrastructure offers, and then started to digitize its business. So that is pretty much my journey through the last 20, 25 years and got me here. And throughout of this journey, I felt very motivated and excited by how tech can help us to improve our day-to-day life. So we call it digital. We call it a better world with digital capabilities. So all under that umbrella.
Wow, what an incredible story. I love hearing that origin story and what put you on this path. And that path would lead you to F5. And for anyone listening, hearing about the company for the first time, can you just tell me a little bit more about the company, problems you solve for your customers, and anything you can share around that, just to introduce everyone listening to F5 and set the scene for our conversation today?
Yes, indeed. Yeah. F5 is in the business of helping applications and CI owners and the CIOs to better deliver applications and better secure applications. And we all know applications nowadays are the lifeblood of digital businesses. So in a way, our mission is to bring a better digital world to life, and through our technology, which is helping applications to scale, to be more secure, and in such manner we protect and scale digital business. So we've been in business for more than 25 years. Company started in the web days. And our original breakthrough technology was application load balancing. And now we're expanding our portfolio into much broader multi-cloud infrastructure, much broader multi-application architecture, including microservices architecture, as well as into application security space.
Now, to set the scene for our conversation today, can you describe the current state of the enterprise architecture and how it's not really well suited for this digital first world that we find ourselves in? Because we've both seen a lot of changes over the last 25 years, but I'm interested in what you're seeing here.
Yeah, that's a good question. Clearly, the current enterprise architecture is under significant pressure in a digital first world. Yeah. Just to understand how traditional enterprise architecture works, it is basically built on a stack of IT technologies that are mostly static and siloed. And then it uses many processes to connect those siloed systems, applications, and data stores together to support the business. So as such, as you can imagine, the traditional enterprise architecture is not up to the speed to scale as business demand increases, and not to respond as quick as the digital business would want, and when it's under security threat. So to give a few recent examples, right? So the Southwest airline situation, flight cancellation, and the FAA systems disruption, both occurred over this very holiday season, are very indicative of how the legacy enterprise architecture is not able to scale to the growing business demand at a digital speed. And another example, the Ticketmaster fiasco in handling the Taylor Swift concert tour that was in November is another example that how the traditional enterprise architecture is not able to handle the sophisticated and automated bot attacks in a digital world. So those are just some of the examples very recently to show how the current enterprise architecture is not suited for a digital first world. So,
yeah, and I think airlines in particular, it's scary just how much of that infrastructure was built. A lot of it was built in the 60s, and they've just keep building things on top of it. And of course, it's an industry that doesn't really get downtime, but it is an industry that desperately needs to upgrade their systems, isn't it?
yes, totally. And then what happened was the traditional enterprises basically just add layers and layers of band-aids to the old architecture, and then it creates tremendous amount of the complexity, and to the degree where changing anything is almost impossible. So that makes it very static, very slow to change, and as demand increases, it cannot handle. So that's basically what it is.
And I guess what we're saying here is any kind of rigid framework that governs how applications are developed, delivered, secured, and integrated, they're becoming a barrier to digital transformation almost, right?
Yes, indeed. As I mentioned earlier, that digital businesses are built on the leverage of key assets such as applications and data. And I give you an example. So applications and APIs nowadays are very essential to delivering better digital experiences and automating business operations. And data and analytics are critical to discovering new business opportunities. But what stands in the way for most organizations is this very rigid architecture framework and the very slow manual governance process. And they are a mismatch to the speed at which a digital business operates, right? So, for example, today, to most organizations, deploying and securing a new application or migrating an existing application to the cloud from the on-prem to public cloud takes many months of manual planning and deployment and the configuration process. So this is a barrier, just as you mentioned earlier, to a business that's operating, wanting to operate at a digital speed. So there is a clear mismatch between this rigid framework and the governance process and the digital future.
And I think you've done a fantastic job there of setting the scene of the scale of the problem and how it surrounds just about everything that we see, from buying a concert ticket to flying on an airline. But if we go into solution mode here, can you expand more on the concept of digital enterprise architecture and how that is actually addressing these changing needs and requirements of data, applications, infrastructure, security, and all those critical elements that we take for granted?
Yes, indeed. First of all, I think much has been written about digital transformation, and most of the publications have been actually about the challenges. So, in fact, there wasn't a lot of answers to how do we, from an IT future of IT architecture point of view, to solve those challenges. So that's why we felt that there is a gap in translating those challenges into the next generation digital IT architecture. So as a result, a few of us at F5 with the combined industry experiences and insights on both the technology side and on the CIO operation side get together, and we wrote a book, and that defines 6 core capabilities for a digital enterprise, 6 core technical and architecture capabilities. So let me just high level run through what those core capabilities are. So we believe first, the multi-cloud infrastructure is one of the key capabilities. Second, data and analytics. Third, application delivery. And fourth, digital security. And the fifth, observability and automation. And sixth, SRE operations. So those are the 6 core capability domains, let's say, for the future digital enterprise architecture. Obviously, for more details, I recommend readers to read our book, Enterprise Architecture for Digital Business, which is recently published by O'Reilly.
And for people listening, how does it incorporating the use of things like private and public clouds, data centers and edge computing into a new enterprise architecture, how does that increase efficiency in delivering applications, just to help those business leaders listening here?
Yes, yeah. A key characteristics of digital business is its ability to scale quickly, right? So give an example. A traditional brick and mortar store can only scale its business physically. But in contrast, a e-commerce business can expand its customer footprint digitally. Say a US-based online flower store finds, say, its business is growing rapidly in UK, so let's say, then it needs to rapidly scale up its application and infrastructure locally to maintain the response time and the user experience, so that to keep up with the local demand. Now, how do that translate to the delivering more application capabilities to the local in the UK region? Now, how do you do it? So in order to accomplish this, business clearly needs to have an enterprise architecture that can leverage both the private and public cloud data center and or the edge infrastructure, so that in an integrated way, so that when you deliver those applications, the e-commerce application services, it can be expanded in a much quick, efficient, and fluid way. So an architecture framework that this is our very first core capability with a multi-cloud infrastructure in an integrated way allows a digital business, in this case, an online flower store, can easily expand its application capability in a new region, in this case, UK. So that's what traditionally the siloed system legacy architecture couldn't accomplish. Just draw it in contrast. In previously, then you would have to then either plan to build your new data center there, deploy your servers, or you have to provision the application, but they are separate from the rest of the world. So in an integrated private multi-cloud infrastructure environment, you can deploy and scale those applications in a much, much more fluid and efficient way.
And we are living in almost a period of uncertainty where many businesses are being challenged to do more with less. And as a result, every new tech project is being put under close scrutiny, and there's a lot of focus on ROI and what value it's bringing to the business. So on that side of things, can you expand on how implementing site reliability engineering, or SRE practices align technology with business outcomes and actually enable businesses to scale their digital operations? Because that is the kind of tangible benefits and results that they're looking for, right?
Yes, indeed. Adopting the SRE operation methodology and best practices is not only a vehicle to achieve cost saving, but it's also a necessary vehicle to meet and match with the digital scale and digital speed. Let me illustrate why it's so. And so, as I mentioned earlier, in the traditional enterprise architecture, because of the siloed IT systems, the lack of high fidelity of observability signals, and the manual operation processes, resolving a business impact and find a root cause isn't always easy and efficient. And so it involves a huge amount of manual passing and diagnosis. It's costly, it's slow. Now, the site reliability or as engineering or SRE methodology, it's actually originated by Google and now widely adopted by many digital enterprise. It's a bridge between the business and the IT to ensure the execution of the business commitment by means of service level objectives, or SLOs. So the SRE approach relies heavily system level telemetry signals, so-called observability, and aggregated insights generated from those telemetries, and then translate them into automated procedures to accelerate the response or remedies to restore the system to meet with SLOs. So that is a methodology and a set of technology tools and operation procedures and even culture. So this framework, this methodology is the linkage between digital systems performance and the business service level objective, which is the outcome you want. So to say it differently, in digital services, the business outcomes are measured by SLOs. For example, in the online flower store I mentioned earlier, the availability and the response time of the website is the business outcome matrix. So you would want to express the uptime of the website to be 99.99 as an example, 4 nines, and the response time for an order could be 2 seconds. So those are examples of the business level SLOs. SRE translate those business level SLOs, so 99.99 uptime and 2 seconds response time, into a set of operation procedures and tools to make it happen. So that is effectively the linkage. So in doing so, it relies on automation, observability, and in doing so, it can save cost and it can maintain the speed to operate at the digital speed and scale.
And I think another big trend right now is the role of AI and analytics in both IT and lines of business, and also how a new data architecture and governance can actually adapt to the convergence of operational technology and IT as a whole. Do you have any insights that you can share or expand on around that?
Yes, AI and data analytics clearly plays an important role in digital business. And this is applicable to both IT and the lines of the business. So, for example, for a typical online retail store, we know that about 10 to 20% of its failed login attempts are actually from legitimate users. They're simply struggling with their validation process. They either forgot about their passwords or they made some manual mistakes. So however, if we go by the simple parameter-based security protection scheme, then we will reject those legitimate users. Hence, it result in loss of revenue and friction in customer experience. Now, advanced ML and AI techniques can actually distinguish those legitimate users from fraudulent users or automated bots, and can grant them the access. So in this way, it can boost revenue and improve customer retention. So this is an example how you apply AI and data analytics in the line of a business setting. And in terms of AI and data analytics in IT, I mentioned the SRE discipline and automation in operations. This is a key use case area for AI and analytics. So, for example, AI ops, now a very hot buzzword, is about producing AI-based analytics and translate them into automated operations to auto-correct failures or auto-scale digital services, applications, and systems. So those are examples of how AI and analytics can be applied to a digital business, both on the IT side and on the line of the business side. Now, in terms of the second part of the question, how a data architecture and a governance process can be applied to the convergence of IT and OT, or first why it's needed. I think in the space of IT and OT convergence, we see a lot of use cases, especially at the edge and the so-called IoT situation. So IoT use cases. So this is where an edge platform and more importantly, edge-based data platform and edge-based analytics plays a key role here. So to give an example, in most of the IoT use cases, about 90% of the data generated by the OT system will lose its value within 2 minutes. So after that, virtually it's useless. So quickly process this kind of data at the edge and discover insights at a very quick response time and translate them into action is critical. So this requires an integrated edge-based data architecture and governance that's applicable to the edge cloud, and which is part of the IoT-centric digital business. And this kind of architecture didn't exist in the traditional enterprise architecture.
And I think most leaders listening will agree that digital transformation is a journey, not a destination. And I'm curious, what key technologies and capabilities do you think CIOs and IT leaders need to identify in order to successfully navigate the second phase of digital transformation that we're starting to see gather pace now?
Yes, and indeed. I think the second phase, if I were to just to quantify it or amplify it a little bit of the digital transformation, is about end-to-end digital services. It's about operating business at the digital speed, and it is about scaling business digitally. So that's my version of the second phase of digital transformation. Now, this then requires CIO and IT leaders to identify and develop new capabilities. As before, I mentioned 6 core capabilities. So observability and automation, data and analytics, multi-cloud, infrastructure, digital security, app delivery, and SRE. Those are all needed capabilities. And if I were to pick a few more critical to the second phase, I would say multi-cloud infrastructure, excuse me, observability and automation, app delivery, and SRE operation. Of course, digital security is key as well. Yeah.
And looking to the future, and for businesses looking for that ROI on any new project, how does embracing a digital enterprise architecture specifically designed for digital business enable organizations to adapt and drive growth in a digital economy during these uncertain times? And also, what is it that excites you about the future? Because we've seen so much doom and gloom, and anyone that scrolls down their news feeds will see a lot of bad news out there. And I want to end on a positive note.
Yes, indeed. I think every organization has its own path and its own pace to evolve into a digital business, right? So there isn't a single clear-cut recipe for everyone. But I would say that embracing a digital-first thinking and transforming yourself to become more and more digital, to put digital at the center of the business agenda is a common theme, and there is no exception. And let me give an example. And this may actually, just on the ending on the positive note, I like this example very much. I was actually personally moved when I hear this story, but it may come from an unexpected angle. So World Vision is one of the largest NGOs and charity organizations in the world. It supports millions of children in developing countries. They fight poverty and injustice. It is an organization with more than 70 years of history. So just like many nonprofits, World Vision had a traditional business model that is focused on donors. However, World Vision has embarked on a digital transformation. So what happened was that they leveraged telemetry, data analytics, and applications, and to better understand the social context of the child and the sponsor. And this allows them to build a deeper and more compassionate relationship between the sponsor and the child. As such, they have shifted their business model from donor-focused, focusing on fundraising, to child-focused, focusing on improving the life of the sponsored child. So this is only achievable by having leveraging digital technology, data and application and analytics to understand the social context between the child and the sponsor. So this is very profound. And when I heard this story, I was extremely moved. And this shows that any organization can put digital at the center of their business and become a digital business. Even a 70-year-old NGO can do that. And in doing so, they actually improve the lives of millions of children around the world. So that's actually what excites me the most about the digital future.
Fantastic. Love that. And we started the podcast talking about your origin story. And as we come full circle, I think it's important to look back throughout our careers, and because none of us are able to achieve any amount of success without a little help along the way. So I'm curious, is there a particular person that you're grateful towards? Maybe someone that saw something in you, invested a little time, or just helped you get where you are in your career? Who would that person be and why? We'll give them a little shout out today.
Yes. There are many people and mentors I'm grateful for, but one particular person I would like to call out specifically. This happened in my early career. So back in the early 2000s, I was promoted to a director at a very traditional company at a very young age. So I was, as a first generation immigrant and a young leader, and I was actually one of the youngest director in the companies. As you can imagine, I was facing a lot of prejudice, and to say at the least. I actually remember in my first attendance of the company's director level offsite, one gentleman actually approached me and literally asked, "Why are you here?" So I was stunned and speechless. So Mark De La Vega, who was my manager at the time, and himself, as you can tell from the name, is a minority. He stood up for me, and he later became my long-term mentor. And even way after I left the company, not only he showed me how to stand up against prejudice in the workspace, but also taught me the necessary leadership skills to be successful in a complex corporate world. So I'm very grateful to him, to Mark. That's one person I would like to call out.
Fantastic. Love that. What a beautiful story too, and a great moment to end on. But before I do, we've covered a lot in a short amount of time today. So anyone interested, just wanting to find out more information about F5, maybe explore some of the content, the topics we talked about today, or contact your team, what's the best place to start?
Yeah, I think, first of all, for listeners who wanted to follow up on this conversation or this topic, you can reach out to me at LinkedIn. So I just find my LinkedIn handle there. You can send me an email directly or message directly. Also, I would like to invite our listeners to download a free copy of the Enterprise Architecture for Digital Business book from f5.com/DEA. So that's the URL for the free copy of the book. Thirdly, I would encourage you to learn more about F5. So visit our website, which is very simple. So f5.com, and follow us on Twitter. So the handle is @F5. Also very simple. So.
Excellent. Well, I'll add all those links to the show notes so people can find you nice and easily. Love chatting with you today about how only by embracing an enterprise architecture that's specifically designed for digital businesses will organizations be able to obtain that adaptability that they need to produce tangible business outcomes and drive growth in a digital economy. That's where the magic stuff happens. It can feel incredibly daunting and overwhelming for business leaders, but I think you've laid a clear path forward for everyone today. So thanks for doing that, and also sharing your story and ending on a beautiful note there. Thanks again.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
We covered so much there, didn't we? And for me, it was all about demystifying some of those complex technologies that allow IT teams to be seen as business enablers rather than blockers, which often sometimes happens as departments see them as the department they either take too long to deliver projects or say no too much. So today was all about championing how they can play a pivotal role in pushing a business forward. And let's face it, every business, regardless of what industry it's in, is a tech company now, like it or not. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on anything we discussed today, what you liked, what you didn't like, what you'd like to see more of, whatever it might be. Please email me now, techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram @NeilC.Hughes. Make sure you say hello and where you listen to the show. But that's it today. But that's it for today. So a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.